welcome to the first video in this lettering series. So, full disclaimer, I am in no way an expert. I have only been lettering for about a year, and I have learned everything that I know from trial and error, from watching other people's videos on YouTube and Instagram, and basically just kind of going for it. So in this first video, I wanted to talk about the things that I actually used when I first started to letter. So straight off the bat, you really only need paper and a pen. So when I actually first started to letter, I started out with something called Faux Calligraphy, which is where you basically take a normal pen. In this case, I'm using a gel pen. It's just one I had around the house, but you can really do it with anything. And you basically start, and I'm going to do my standard word, which is hello. And you basically start by doing cursive. And you then go back in and you thicken the downstrokes. So before you go out and buy fancy pens and all that kind of stuff, this is actually what I started out doing. I've used fine liners, so like the Pitt artist pens. I've used the Stattlers. I've used basically any pen that you can kind of think of. You really just need something that you can write with. Honestly, it's that simple. So that is the absolute first step that I took when I was learning. Was I started playing around with faux calligraphy. And what this really helped me with, and you'll see I kind of did a messy job here, but what this helped me with was learning which strokes needed to be thicker and which needed to be thinner. So the general rule is that if it's an upstroke, then you leave it thin. If it's a downstroke, you thicken it. So when I first started, this is what I used. The first brush pens that I actually got were a set of these Lira Aqua brush duo pens. So they are very similar to the Tombow. I believe they're a little bit cheaper, and honestly, this was just what I found here in France. The colors and the actual brush itself, I believe, are pretty comparable to the Michaels brand, which I want to say is Artist Loft. And they've got some kind of weird colors, but for starting out, these were great. And so you have the brush on one side, and you've got the bullet tip on the other. And what I first started doing, but when I, just got these and I was not really sure how to control them, is I basically use the bullet tip to do faux calligraphy. And the one advantage of having the bullet tip like this is much easier to thicken the downstrokes because you've got a wider nib on there. Okay. So that was where I moved from just any old pen I had, faux calligraphy, to using the bullet tip. And then I started using the brush tip. So I'm going to show you in a bit kind of what I did to practice for that. But I do have to say that having kind of gone through different brushes, one of my favorite brushes for beginning letterers, and I found this really good as a left-handed letterer, was the Pentel Touch Sign Pen. I like the soft nib, which it is a flexible, so you can see here it's a more flexible nib. But what I really like is that in comparison with a Tombow style brush pen, it is a much smaller nib, which on the one hand allows you to write smaller in general, but on the other hand, for beginners, it is a lot easier to control the pen. At least that is what I found. So this was basically the second brush pen that I ever got. And I'm gonna give you a little demonstration. If you have not seen lettering with these, I'm gonna see if I can actually go over my little smudge. There we go. And so basically the trick is the same, except that when you push down, you make thicker lines. So instead of going back over after and doing faux calligraphy, you just do it straight away. And to give you a comparison with the sign pen, you can get, in some ways, thinner downstrokes. You get thinner upstrokes, but you also get thinner downstrokes. And the benefit I found, this actually using a smaller brush pen really helped me when I was learning to figure out control of the pen, because it takes a while to get the hang of it. And so those were basically the pens that I started out on, and I mean, obviously everyone is different, so what worked for me when I was starting out on, for example, the smaller pen might not work for you. But the other thing that I got kind of straight off the bat, and you'll see I'm actually using right now, is nice paper. So you can absolutely use computer paper, or you can use whatever notebooks you have, but the one upside of having a slightly better paper, so this is actually a Rhodia pad, and let's see if it says on the back here. So this is an 80 gram paper, and the Leuchtturm I believe is also 80 gram, but this is actually a smoother paper. So what happens is you have less feathering than you would on a lower quality paper. So one thing when I was first starting out, when I tried computer paper, I would get really discouraged because it would just look really messy, even if I was trying my hardest to make it look nice. And so using nicer paper has the benefit, one, of not destroying your nibs as quickly, which if you are a left-handed letterer, you will probably destroy your nibs pretty quickly in the beginning. I know I did. And having smoother paper actually does help save them a little bit. And it also just gives your finished product a nicer look to it, so you can kind of see where you're messing up rather than trying to figure out between all of the bleeding and feathering on the paper what it actually would look like if you had done it nicely. So yeah, these are just the initial supplies that I use. There's obviously like a million more supplies that you can have and that you can get as you go along in this, but these were just the things that I used when I was first starting out lettering. So I hope you guys found this helpful. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave them down below, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.